Good morning and welcome to Aaj Savere. Let's begin the program with this beautiful thought. Let 2018 be the year of flow, like a river flows. May your passion create ripples in the universe and watch it unfold. Life, they say, is a mystery, and our guest today is someone who loves unraveling it every moment. He has served the Indian Navy Coast Guard for over 2 decades and is now a best-selling author who specializes in crime fiction, murder mysteries. Please welcome Commandant Kulpreet Yadav. Very good morning to you.
Thank you very much.
Like we shared this thought, do you think that life happens and uncertainty is our best friend?
Uncertainty is of course a part of life, and I think unless we are confident about what we are trying to do, we will not really have the skill that is required to conquer uncertainty. But yeah.
तो जैसे कहते हैं कि जीवन में एक चीज़ तो तय है कि तय कुछ भी नहीं है, तो इंडियन नेवी कोस्ट गार्ड में अच्छे भले आप काम कर रहे थे, तो 2014 में 23 साल की नौकरी के बाद उसे छोड़कर राइटर बनने का कैसा सोचा आपने?
नहीं, मैंने जब अपना कॉलेज कंप्लीट किया तो क्योंकि मेरे फादर भी आर्म फोर्सेस में थे, तो एक वो इन्फ्लुएंस और वो अट्रैक्शन यूनिफॉर्म की तरफ तो हमेशा से था, और उसी वजह से मैंने भी खुद यूनिफॉर्म वाली ऑप्शन को चूज़ किया. बट 2 डिकेड्स काम करने के बाद में देन आई रियलाइज दैट प्रॉबेबली आई हैव रीच्ड अ पॉइंट इन माय लाइफ दैट आई नीड टू डू समथिंग एल्स. And you know, while being in the service, I'd written two books, 2 full-fledged novels, and they'd done decently well. And I thought, why not become a storyteller, you know, permanently for some time? And that's what I've been doing for the last 4 years.
तो मेरे पास ये किताब है, कुलप्रीत यादव की लेटेस्ट किताब, मर्डर इन पहाड़गंज, and this is doing very well, one of the best books of 2017.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you very much.
So congratulations, but tell us, what's the plot, what are the characters like?
Murder in Paharganj is actually the story of a guy called Vix Menon.
Yes.
Vix Menon is a Delhi-based out-of-job journalist. He's about 26 years old. His girlfriend has left him, and he's also turned alcoholic. Now, in many ways, he's at the lowest point in his life, and through the course of this story, he becomes a murder suspect for the police. The circumstances are such, and how he proves his innocence is actually the story. Not just proves his innocence, but also rebuilds his lost relationship with his ex-girlfriend.
As I read some of these reviews, it says it's a fast-paced narrative, suspense-filled plot, and these are the components, and it looks like movies, like a movie script. The book is like a movie script. So it's high octane. How does the writer conceive something like this?
By observation, by, you know, being someone who's read a lot of stories, I've visited a lot of places, I've interacted with people, understanding human emotions and human conflict, and all that. I'm really very happy that people are calling it to be kind of a story that can perhaps be adapted into a movie, and we are actively seeking out people on that front. It's a great validation, because when the readers not just enjoy the story in the book format,
yes,
but there is a hunger for them to, you know, see it also in a cinema. So overall, I'm very excited. But to answer further extension to this question, if I can add, is that I'm also looking at writing screenplays in 2018. This year I'm going to be experimenting with screenplays. Writing a book is definitely difficult, because I've been there, done that. I haven't yet started writing screenplays, so I don't think it will be right on my part to comment. I'm at the moment in the learning mode. I'm keeping my mind open. I'm doing a lot of reading. There are screenplays, bound screenplays, which are available in the market. I'm also looking at movies now with fresh eyes from the storytelling perspective, and let's see how it goes.
But another interesting fact about this book, Murder in Paharganj, is that while you have about 60 chapters, you're unraveling who's the murderer as early as the 3rd chapter.
Yeah, so I was actually thinking that you know, it's the traditional format is murder happens in the first chapter and who the murderer is going to be revealed right at the end.
Yes.
And I just wanted to play with this format, and I thought, why not, you know, reveal the identity of the murderer in the second or the third chapter itself, and make the story about how that the good guy is eventually going to capture the bad guy. So it's playing with the format, and this was challenging. This brought its own challenges, of course, but I'm happy that the people have really realized that it is worth reading even after finding out who the murderer is.
So tell us more about the other two books that preceded this one, The Girl Who Loved the Pirate and The Girl Who Loved the Spy.
Absolutely. So these two books are actually spy thrillers. They feature another character called Andy Curran. Andy Curran is 29. He lives in Delhi. He was born to a single mother. He's an ex-army officer who's worked for 5 years in the army, and he's a journalist. He's an investigative journalist, and that's his identity as far as the people who know him are concerned. But actually, he's a Government of India spy. He's an undercover spy, and the two missions that he does, so one is The Girl Who Loved a Spy, and the second one is The Girl Who Loved a Pirate.
So whether it is Andy Curran or in this book Vix Menon, are these completely fictional characters, or the art writer is inspired by some story?
They are actually fictional, to be speaking the truth, because though I understand the fact that you know, being a spy is a very difficult job, because you see, this is the only profession where you can't have a visiting card on which you say, you know, Andy Curran, spy. Even if you're a shopkeeper, or you are a sportsman, or you could be working for the government or for the private, you can make your card and identify what you're doing, you know, your profession. But as a spy, you cannot do. So I've always been very intrigued by the kind of lives that the spies have been leading, and of course it's all over in the media what happens when they go to foreign land and they get captured. But I thought, if there is a spy in India who's actually doing something undercover right under our nose, but still we don't know about that person, so why not create someone like that and write a story? So it's completely fictional, but it could be true, you never know.
When you had that first book of yours, the first novel, The Bet, in 2006?
2006, that's right.
And then over the decade till Murder in Paharganj, how has the writer in Kulpreet Yadav evolved?
Tremendously, tremendously. When I wrote The Bet, probably it was a very instinctive novel, you know, the kind of something that happened to me in a very natural way, and I did not really edit it that much. You know, the story came to me, I wrote it down, I was very fortunate that it got published, and then I realized that probably the story is not that great because the feedback had been mixed, and I started looking at writing from a very, very different and new angle, and by doing that, I eventually, now of course I teach creative writing at a few places here in Delhi, and I have learned how to write better, and so of course I have there's a great improvement, but then it's a long distance. Art is something that you can't learn in one lifetime, so I'm looking forward to writing even better books in the future.
But how did you select this genre, racy thrillers, murder mysteries, crime fiction?
It's actually part of my upbringing, you know. When I was in 12th standard, my dad was in Pune at that time, and I found myself trapped in a place which was very boring, you know. You go to the school or your college, come back and go and play basketball with your friends, and that's it. Until one day when my dad introduced me to a thriller written by a Western writer, and suddenly I found myself to be transported to a very colorful place where people have had different kind of agendas, and there were good people and there were bad people, and you know, all sorts of things happening, and that excited me, you know. So 1 book, 2 book, 3 book, and I became someone who started, you know, reading these books with that hunger, because it was taking me away from boredom, and perhaps that played with the subconscious of a growing mind. And eventually in 2006, when I decided to write my first book, it, without my knowing, turned out to be a thriller.
So are you someone who gets bored very easily?
Yes, I do. I do get bored, I think, but the fact is that all of us do get bored, and at such times we always turn to our hobbies.
And reading a book or writing one could actually be one very good escape.
Writing one is definitely a good escape, but then reading is much easier because you can read a book in 3 to 4 hours. Writing a book is a completely different kind of an animal that you need to control. It takes skill, it takes hard work, it takes labor. And at the end of the day, when you take, let's say, 6 months to 1 year to write a book, it may not eventually be ever published, and you might have to just put it in your drawer and forget about it. That has happened to 2 of the books that I've written. So
how does say an aspiring writer handle rejection of his manuscript?
Rejection is something that is part and parcel of any artist's growth, and you have to be thick-skinned, you have to believe in yourself, you have to experiment, you have to innovate, you have to work hard, and every time you get rejected, you should bounce back with a better product, with your full, wholehearted involvement. And whatever you try to do as anyone, you should be passionate about that particular thing. You should have that burning desire that I'm going to write the best novel in the world, or I'm going to make the best piece of music in the world.
So when your father did introduce you to a thriller, it was clear from then that if you were to write, it will be thrillers and crime fiction?
No, Amit, at that time I had absolutely no clue. I was just a teenager, you know. I was just about 17 or 16 at that time, and I was just kind of, it was, for me, it was escape, you know. At that time I was just enjoying myself, and never ever in my life I had thought about writing, you know. I was an officer.
But yes, but you did realize as you read that book at such a young age that, like you said, stories are a time machine. They did transport you to another world.
Stories are indeed a are the greatest time machines, because they do transport you to different places. But I was probably, I'm not sure, but then I never thought of writing actually. The power of storytelling came to me as a realization only very recently. And I think the entire society and the nations and the people, you know, the past, present and the future eventually are connected to each other with stories, you know. And I also speak on a topic known as entrepreneurship and storytelling, and I've gone on record to say that if you're not a storyteller, you cannot be an entrepreneur, because eventually it's all about stories. You pitch your ideas to investors in the form of stories, you sell your product for consumers in the form of a story, you tell stories to your employees to get them motivated, you know, and for them to build your ideas. So I have realized that storytelling is a very powerful tool, and in fact now I've been going to schools and colleges and speaking about the power of storytelling. And in fact storytelling for active learning is one of the topics that I've been doing in the schools.
Absolutely. I think this is a very fantastic statement that Kulpreet ji has made, that if you can't be a storyteller, probably will struggle to be an entrepreneur. And it's very interesting if you see today's date, 16th of January 2018, and exactly 2 years back, the Government of India, Prime Minister Modi had launched the Startup India campaign. So to all the aspiring startup entrepreneurs, what are the tips you could share?
So I think the entrepreneurs should realize the fact that this is a tough space they're getting into, because you see, what is a startup or what is an entrepreneur doing? You know, there's a lot of confusion in the minds of students and colleges, and of course the government is doing a lot of things to kind of dispel all that confusion. But perhaps the easiest way to put across is for the young entrepreneurs to realize what entrepreneurship is. So entrepreneurship is using current technology to solve a problem that the masses are facing. And if you're able to figure this out and you have an idea that is emerging from this basic thought, thereafter you have to make a product which should be sustainable. The second mistake that the entrepreneurs do is that they're in too much hurry to go for investment. They run to the investors, whether it is a high net individual or it is a venture capital firm, and they want money, and their burnout rates are very high and they're not able to sustain. I think the people should realize that they should make a self-sustaining model, and the money can definitely come in, but that should be for growth. But ideally, strong idea which is solving the problem of the masses by using technology, sustainable, which means the expenditure and the earning is kind of balanced, and once you're able to reach an equilibrium there, I think you have a great startup on your hands.
So Kulpreet ji, many say that if you look at the Silicon Valley in America, then the West had their own challenges, but India has its own set of challenges. So if you look at this new year 2018, could you identify some of the challenges that could well be the big ideas which can help the masses this year?
Challenges are actually similar, whether it's the Western world which is developed or we are part of the developing part of the world. Challenges are always same, you know. It is the belief in the idea, it is the hard work, it is the focus, it is the ability to get up every time you fail and be there and believe in your idea, even if you're the last man on the earth to believe in your idea. But if you believe in it, that idea is great and that idea is going to become a reality one day. You know, in our social structure, unfortunately, one of the things that separates us perhaps from the Western civilization is that we are very, very job focused, yes. Very, very security conscious. Job security is, yes, a very fundamental aspect of our lives, and some of the times we have great students, entrepreneurs, but you know, 2 years down the line, because the pressure from the family members and sometimes the pressure of the relatives, etc., and they get into a job where they don't want to go, but then because of the money and job security they have to go. So we end up losing someone who had a great idea. So I think here parents and the society also plays a very important role. We should rather encourage people with ideas, you know, and people who have, and that's happening actually. There are many good corporate firms who are supporting the ideas of the young people. They've got incubation cells in different colleges, now in schools as well. The government of India is giving, you know, through the Startup India campaign, they're giving money to people. So all this is happening, but perhaps it needs to happen little more in 2018.
On our voice today with Kulpreet Yadav, a best-selling author who's also served the Indian Navy Coast Guard for almost 23 years. Can you help us understand any concept that we as a student never liked, whether it was the Newton laws or anything else in physics, chemistry, social science? And how can story help me understand that concept in an easy manner?
I think stories have the kind of engaging quotient which generally an explanation doesn't have, you know. So when a teacher or a professor in a class is trying to tell a story about a concept, then the engagement is high and people can probably relate to it and remember it for the rest of their lives. I'll give you an example.
Yes.
Recently, I was there speaking at a school and I was speaking to the teachers and I said, you know, try to, you know, engage your students through stories. And the physics teacher, you know, he raised his hand and he said, sir, how can we explain the concepts of physics through stories? And yes. I said, you can. So we started talking in front of an audience and I said, okay, let's, you know, tell Newton's first law in the form of a story. And he said, it is impossible. I said, okay, you and these 6 more teachers form a group, put your heads together and try to think how this can be enacted in the form of a story. And sure enough, after 10 minutes, we did have a great performance. These teachers were able to create a small skit of 5 minutes. And thereafter, the principal came to me. I'll not going to say the name of the school, and she said, I'm an English teacher and till now I don't know how many times I've read Newton's first law, but I had no clue what Newton's first law is. But after today, I will never forget what Newton's first law is, and same was the response by all the teachers. So I think stories bring the students and the teachers closer. Absolutely. And closer with each story, and that's the whole idea, you know, because unless teaching and learning brings joy, as someone said, there is little point in our kids going to the school.
Absolutely. So I think for all the teachers and mentors who are heading to schools or some academic institutions this Tuesday, then you can probably use this particular exercise, any of the concept, and just ask the students to weave a story around it. But there's a story to your name as well, Kulpreet Yadav. So how did this name Kulpreet happen to you?
So Kulpreet was because my mother's very religious and my father is not that religious. And when I was born, so the Janampatri was made and the priest said the name has to be starting with Kul. You know, Kul se naam hona chahiye. So my father, you know, proposed to my mom that let's call him Kulbhushan or Kuldeep. And even at that time when I was born, these were, you know, kind of names that my mother was not convinced. And she said, "Ye bade purane type ke, kuch naya type ka naam batao." So my father had a Sikh friend whose name was Kulpreet, and he suddenly said, "Why not Kulpreet?" And they said, she said, "Yeah, that's a nice name." And that's how I became Kulpreet Yadav. So I've got a first Sikh name, and I think that's the beauty of our nation, because we've lived for thousands of years as you know, a civilization which has been absorbing everyone and, you know, living peacefully. So I'm very happy to have a first Sikh name.
And talking about your mother was an avid reader. So how much a role do you think she played where you realized the hidden talent that you had towards books?
My mother was, yes, she was into reading a lot, much more than my dad. She's not very comfortable with the English language. My mother hails from the rural part of Haryana, and she was reading Hindi novels mostly. And while growing up, I saw her reading those big, novels written by Surendra Mohan Pathak,
Yes.
or Surendra Sharma, etc. And I'm not sure what kind of role it played, but then perhaps it did play some role, because I was not someone who was reading those books, but I was perhaps getting attracted to the idea of someone consuming a story which has been created in the form of a book, which probably must have remained, I'm sure, in my subconscious or unconscious mind, and eventually I became a storyteller.
And your father, since you saw him in the uniform and he was an engineer working for the Indian Air Force, then how come you had love for the Navy Coast Guard and not the Indian Air Force?
To be 100% frank, I'm not too comfortable with heights. So I did opt for the Air Wing NCC while being a college student in Pune. But I was not too comfortable in those gliding experiences of mine, and I was more fascinated towards the sea, that openness and ability to go to different places. And so despite being an Air Force NCC cadet, I eventually got into the Marine arm.
But tell us more about your days in the Marine training and the Naval Academy.
Naval Academy at that time was located in Goa.
Okay.
Currently it is shifted to a small town called Arikal in Kerala. It was very, very interesting and challenging at the same time, and I think whatever I have become today, it is because of the fundamentals that I had learned at the Naval Officers Academy, be it leadership, be it hard work, be it integrity, be it honesty, all those basic values which my instructors, they inculcated into me, have become part of my personality. So even now when I've retired, I lead a very disciplined life, and I think in many ways it is contributing to my growth even as a storyteller.
So tell us more about the interesting voyages that you may have taken on the waters. What was life like being a naval officer and working for the Indian Coast Guard?
I've done most of my tenures actually on board ships.
Okay.
And ship is a very, very challenging place to work in. People may not know this. People think that there's nothing much happening there, but then the entire strength of the crew or strength of the ship, the people who are working on the ship, are divided in 3 parts ideally. So everyone works for 8 hours. So but 8 hours is not at a stretch. So it is 4 hours, then a gap of 8 hours, then 4 hours, and a gap of 8 hours. And that's how each and every person, except the commanding officer, is engaged in some or the other activity in different parts of the ship. So I think right from the time I was a cadet to a junior officer to a mid-ranking officer, eventually till the time I became commanding officer, I had the experience of doing every possible thing on a ship, be it lowering the boat and going for anti-smuggling missions, or going for landing, or trying to catch the fishing, the fishermen who have illegally come to our waters and they're poaching, capturing them, doing the documentation, getting associated in getting them convicted in the court, etc. Many intelligence missions and many peacekeeping missions, some firefighting, some anti-piracy patrols. So it's been a helicopter coming and landing and going off, and very interesting, very complex and very professional missions that I did. And I must say that I was very, very fortunate to be part of a very lean, thin and visible kind of an organization. And that is again, this, in addition to the Naval Officers Academy basic training, the kind of friends that I've made while working on these ships, they have contributed in making who I am today.
Tell us more about the Indian Coast Guards, because I'm sure the viewers would love to know more about it.
So Indian Coast Guard is a very small marine organization which is kind of mentored by the Indian Navy. When we talk about the defense forces in India, we just say that it is Army, Navy and Air Force, but a lot of people are not aware that there is another small organization existing called the Indian Coast Guard, which is kind of dependent on Indian Navy in many things. For example, on training, on logistics, on the harbor support, on charts, on security, and many issues. And yet, it is an independent organization that even the Indian Navy is very proud of. So these are two sister organizations which are kind of coexisting, and the Indian Navy mentors the organization.
And when you became the commanding officer for a ship, what are the challenges there?
The commanding officer is actually awake 24 hours even when he's taking rest, because he's the one who's monitoring the control of the entire ship, and there could be a situation which might come within a second that the ship needs to respond. It could be to a threat, it could be due to some intelligence information that has come, and you just have to kind of get going right at that point, and everybody needs to converge and do the mission planning while being at sea. So commanding officer is a tough job, but also a very satisfying job, because you learn so much about people, and it inculcates very valuable lessons of leadership which remain with you for the rest of your life.
And once you take the voyage, it could run into several weeks?
Oh yes, it could, yeah, maybe a week, sometimes several weeks. It really depends on the mission that you're undertaking. Ideally, a ship is turned around from another port after 4 or 5 days. So you, like for example, if you go outside Mumbai for sailing, you might sail for about 3 days, then you might touch Goa harbor to kind of replenish your fuel and your ration, etc., and mails, etc., and then you move out to go for another mission.
So, Kulpreet ji, now that you were a successful naval officer, let's talk about December 1994. We've talked about the girl who loved the spy and who loved the pirate. What about Seema ji, and how did you meet her?
Yeah, it was arranged marriage. She's from Delhi, and I think I was very fortunate that this arranged marriage happened, because I got to meet her, and we fell in love, and we've been together for a long time now, 23 years, and we've got 2 beautiful daughters. I think we are we are more of friends and partners, and she's very educated, she's intellectually very stimulating person. Many times I think that perhaps more intelligent and more intellectually stimulating than I am, but then she had to sacrifice everything because she was married to me, and we were moving from places to places, so she could not really have a career of her own. But I'm very happy that she's my wife.
So when a commanding officer is on a voyage, can they also take a family along, or your family had to do a lot of sacrifice because you had a challenging job?
Yes, you cannot take your family along. Your family stays back in the harbor, and you're away, and sometimes you miss crucial moments of your children, particularly when they're young, they're growing up years, and that's a sacrifice you need to make as an Indian person who's wearing uniform. I'm proud of it, and proud of the fact that my family supported me. It was really wonderful. You miss parent-teacher meetings, etc.
Well, as a as a soldier, we salute you, because all the sacrifice that you do for the well-being of the nation and your family as well. But this picture where all 4 of you are together, yourself, Seema ji, and your 2 daughters, this is on board a ship?
No, this is on board a hovercraft,
Okay.
and this is actually taken at a small city called Haldia, which is about 3 hours from Calcutta. It's a coastal town where I was posted. I was commanding a hovercraft there, and hovercraft is a very fascinating machine. We just have at that time we had 6. Now we have few more, and it can go over land and it can also go over water.
So, hovercraft can also go over land, water, both?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So yeah, so this picture was taken on board that hovercraft.
But as I see this picture, we observe that the uniform that you're wearing is blue in color, and I think the viewers, having seen Rustam and some of the other films,
white uniform.
Yeah, white color.
No, actually on Fridays,
Yeah.
you wear blue uniform. This is the standard practice, and this picture was taken on a Friday, so that's why I'm in blues, but then other days you wear white.
Kulpreet ji, why do you think there is a conflict in the society?
Conflict in the society is there, conflict in the society was there, and conflict in the society is always going to be there. It's really important how we deal with conflict. As a storyteller, I know that conflict actually is the whole idea on which a story is built, because story is about someone trying to solve his conflict. I think we should let us look at conflict from a personal angle. As long as we are positive, we are determined, we have some beautiful hobby, we have something planned out for the future, we are happy with ourselves, that is every possibility that we will be able to handle the conflict that comes our way in a positive way. Right?
So say for example, let's talk about Murder in Paharganj again. You were telling me that every story will have 5 elements. So we'll have a character, say Vix Menon. We'll have a plot.
We have a plot, yes.
We need to have conflict as an element.
Conflict also is one of the elements, yes.
Then
and we also have setting.
Setting.
And the last one is point of view.
Yes.
So point of view is like how the story is told. It could be first person when you say I, or it could be second person when you say you, or it could be a third person point of view. So this is a third person point of view, and there is a character Vix Menon, but there's also a character called Tonya Majumdar, who's his love interest in the book, and the conflict is him trying. It's an external conflict. You know, the conflicts are of 2 types. One is internal conflict, where part of you wants to do something and part of you does not want to do something.
Yes.
The external conflict is when you are being stopped from achieving your aim by someone. It could be a human being, it could be nature, it could be society, it could be machines, like in the case of the Hollywood movies that we see. So it could be anything. In this case, he is trying to find out a murderer, and he has a little bit of idea who the murderer is, and he is getting closer and closer to the murderer. But the problem is he is much weaker than the murderer, who is much more focused, intelligent, resourceful, rich, and a person with influence. Now he realizes that the only way he can overcome and get this murderer arrested is by joining hands with his ex-girlfriend, Tonya Majumdar, whose job is, as a psychologist, she works for the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, and her job is to read the minds of the criminals, to profile criminals. And he goes back to her and he says that, will you help me? And they have separated, but this perhaps he's hoping becomes a reason for them to get back together again. So if we talk about Murder in Paharganj, it has got 2 threads. One is Vix Menon trying to chase a stronger enemy, and the second is he hoping like hell that he gets back together with his estranged girlfriend.
But you're saying, be it any story, be it Murder in Paharganj or any story, conflict has to be there as an element.
Conflict is because no conflict, no story. Because you see, what is a story? Story is always someone trying to solve the problem of his or her life. Even if when we look at epics, it is always problem solving. Someone is in crisis, yes, and he's trying to solve that problem. You know, if you put it in Leo Tolstoy's words, very interesting. He said the stories are only of 2 types. Either a man goes on a journey or a stranger comes to town.
As far as positive state of mind is concerned, every morning we do play some music. Are you a good singer? Are you into music?
I am a horrible singer, but then yes, I am very fond of music. I am yet to really, I struggle to understand the classical Indian music, which my brother is very fond of, but that is something that brings a very, it calms my mind. I don't understand how, but not just Indian classical music, Western classical music, jazz, rap. I'm very experimental in that way, and I look for disruption. So all sorts of music, I'm always listening to music.
So when you were on the voyage, and some people say, you know, you've got limited people to interact, a sunrise and a sunset to see, you think music could be of great help then?
Absolutely, and you know, as varied my choices were, yes, as varied as playing Def Leppard or Eminem to Kishore Kumar or Mohammad Rafi. So whatever suits my state of mind, I think music brings a very unique kind of flavor to whatever you're doing. You know, it kind of adds rhythm to you doing chart work, you're reading a book, you're trying to do an exercise. I think music is very important.
कुलप्रीत जी, हमारे कार्यक्रम में एक फिटनेस सेगमेंट भी होता है, तो इससे पहले हम आज योग सूत्र दिखाएं. आप बताइए, आप फिटनेस के लिए क्या करते हैं?
पहले तो मैं फिटनेस में जब मैं मतलब स्कूल में जाता था, कॉलेज में जाता था, तो मैं थोड़ा बहुत आलसी था. पर जब मैं एकेडमी में पहुंचा और उसके बाद में जब मेरे इंस्ट्रक्टर्स ने मेरे को पुश किया, तो उस टाइम तो इतना अच्छा नहीं लगा, बट ओवर ए पीरियड ऑफ टाइम एज ए यंग ऑफिसर मैंने रियलाइज़ किया कि वो मेरे को कितना अलर्ट रखता है फिटनेस, और मैं कितना ज़्यादा काम कर सकता हूँ एक नॉर्मल अनफिट बंदे के मुकाबले. सो मैं इस चीज़ को कंटिन्यूसली करता रहा हूँ. इवन नाउ आजकल टेक्नोलॉजी आ गई है, मेरे फ़ोन में मैंने ऐप डाउनलोड किया हुआ है. माई टारगेट पर डे 7 किलोमीटर्स वॉक. अगर रात को 10 बजे कंप्लीट नहीं होता है, डिनर कर चुका हूँ, तो भी मैं नीचे जाता हूँ और मैं उसको ऐप को देखता हूँ और अपना पूरा टारगेट कंप्लीट कर आता हूँ. सो आई थिंक फिटनेस बहुत ही ज़रूरी है. और इंडिया में ओबेसिटी की प्रॉब्लम है, हाइपरटेंशन की प्रॉब्लम है, लोग जंक फूड की तरफ ज़्यादा जा रहे हैं, और इन सब चीज़ों को हम कर सकते हैं, लेकिन मॉडरेट कर सकते हैं अगर हम फिटनेस पे ध्यान दें।
और फिजिकल के साथ साथ मेंटल फिटनेस बहुत ज़रूरी है।
मेंटल फिटनेस भी बहुत ज़रूरी है, जो मेरे ख्याल से, मैं तो राइटर हूँ तो बोलूँगा कि रीडिंग से आती है, ऑफ कोर्स सिनेमा से भी आती है, और यारों दोस्तों के साथ टाइम स्पेंड करने से भी आती है। हॉलीडेज़, एक और मैं बात कहना चाहूँगा कि इंडिया में क्या है कि लोग जब उनको एक एक्स अमाउंट ऑफ सैलरी मिलती है तो वो उसमें से लेट अस टू गिव एन एग्जांपल, अगर किसी को 10,000 सैलरी मिलती है तो उसमें से 5,000 वो स्पेंड करता है, 5,000 वो सेव करना चाहता है। आप उसकी 50,000 सैलरी कर दो तो वो फिर भी 5,000 ही स्पेंड करेगा और 45,000 सेव करना चाहेगा। पीपल डू नॉट रियलाइज दैट इट इज़ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर us to travel and to pursue whatever hobbies that we have. It might be a little expensive, but we must try to do it.
Absolutely. I think that a couple of important points that I gathered was, one, that we need to invest more in ourselves, and second, even reading books can give us fitness.
पवन मुक्त आसन। दोनों घुटने मोड़ें तथा जांघों को छाती के पास लाएं। उंगलियों को आपस में जकड़ लें और घुटनों के नीचे पिंडलियों को अच्छी तरह पकड़ लें। सिर तथा कंधे उठाएं और घुटनों को थोड़ी से छूने का प्रयास करें। यह पवन मुक्त आसन है। यह कब्ज दूर करता है, उदर वायु से मुक्ति दिलाता है और पीछे की मांसपेशियों तथा मेरु तंत्रिकाओं को ठीक करता है। अपना सिर पीछे लाएं, सांस छोड़ें। अपनी टांगों को सीधा फैलाएं। आराम करें। उदर की चोटों, हर्निया, साइटिका तथा गर्भावस्था में यह अभ्यास ना करें।
आप देख रहे हैं कार्यक्रम आज सवेरे। आज हम बातचीत कर रहे हैं कुलप्रीत यादव जी के साथ। आपने बहुत सी किताबें लिखी हैं और पिछले साल मर्डर इन पहाड़गंज ये एक बेस्ट सेलर बनी है, और क्रिएटिव राइटिंग की आप बात कर रहे थे। थोड़ा बताइए, जो युवा राइटर बनना चाहते हैं, क्रिएटिव राइटिंग करना चाहते हैं, तो कैसे सीखें?
मेरे ख्याल से तो इंडियंस ऐसे ही नेचुरली बहुत अच्छे स्टोरी टेलर्स हैं, बिकॉज अगर आप हमारी सिविलाइजेशन को देखें तो हमारे फोक सॉन्ग्स और फोक प्लेस और फोक स्टोरीज बहुत ही एंगेजिंग और इंटरेस्टिंग हैं। हमारी इवन जो रामायण और महाभारत की बात करें तो दे आर सच कॉम्प्लेक्स एंड एट द सेम टाइम सच ब्यूटिफुल एंड एंटरटेनिंग एंड इंस्पायरिंग स्टोरी। सो आई थिंक ये हमारे अंदर में ऑलरेडी है। बट हो क्या गया है कि हम लोग हमारे कॉलेजेस में बीए और एमए पढ़ाते हैं तो उसमें केवल इंग्लिश लिटरेचर पढ़ाते हैं, वो भी क्लासिकल लिटरेचर पढ़ाते हैं। हम लोग बीए क्रिएटिव राइटिंग और एमए क्रिएटिव राइटिंग नहीं करते हैं। तो एक तो फंडामेंटली हमारे पास एजुकेशन नहीं है क्रिएटिव राइटिंग की, जिसकी वजह से पूरी पब्लिशिंग इंडस्ट्री स्ट्रगल करती है। जिसको बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरत होती है वो फिर क्रिएटिव राइटिंग पढ़ने के लिए आयोवा यूनिवर्सिटी जाता है या ईस्ट एंग्लिया यूनिवर्सिटी यूनाइटेड किंगडम में जाता है, वहाँ जाके लोग पढ़कर आते हैं।
So are you suggesting that New India demands that just like we have BA, MA and we have formal courses for literature, similarly we have bachelor's and master's degree in fine arts for creative writing?
For creative writing, absolutely, it is a must. We must have such type of degree options available. There is some kind of awareness that has come into the education industry at the moment, and creative writing has become an optional subject, and also some vocational coaching is happening. But then I think one is that your belief that you're a storyteller, and the second is someone to hold your hand and guide you, and at the right time teach you fundamentals of how to write a story well. I think that's very important, because then only you will be able to write very well.
And what about the length of the book? How do we decide that? How do you decide the interesting titles like Murder in Paharganj?
आपने इंस्पायरिंग राइटिंग की बात की तो मैं एक बात और बोलना चाहूँगा बिफोर आई आंसर योर क्वेश्चन, एंड दैट इज दैट लोगों को पूरी फुल लेंथ नॉवल लिखने से पहले शॉर्ट स्टोरीज के साथ एक्सपेरिमेंटेशन करनी चाहिए, बिकॉज शॉर्ट स्टोरीज में वही पांचों एलिमेंट होते हैं जो हमने बात की थी। लेकिन शॉर्ट स्टोरीज 2 दिन में या 3 दिन में आप लिख सकते हो, हफ्ते भर में उसको रिफाइन कर सकते हो। तो अगर आपने बहुत सारी शॉर्ट स्टोरीज लिखी और पढ़ी हैं तो लाइक स्टीफन किंग जो एक बहुत ही पॉपुलर अमेरिकन राइटर हैं, वो भी हमेशा बोलते हैं कि इट इज़ बेटर दैट यू स्टार्ट विद शॉर्ट स्टोरीज एंड लेटर वंस यू आर कॉन्फिडेंट एज अ स्टोरी टेलर इन द शॉर्ट स्टोरी फॉर्मेट यू गो टू द नॉवल फॉर्मेट।
तो शॉर्ट स्टोरी कितने पेजेस की हो सकती है?
शॉर्ट स्टोरी एक्चुअली 500 वर्ड से लेके 8,000 वर्ड्स तक हो सकती है। आजकल तो एक्सपेरिमेंटल 100 वर्ड की शॉर्ट स्टोरीज भी होती हैं, 20 वर्ड्स की शॉर्ट स्टोरीज भी होती हैं, 10 वर्ड्स की भी होती है, 6 वर्ड की भी आजकल टाइनी टेल्स होती हैं। तो फॉर्मेट तो धीरे धीरे बदल ही रहा है, इवॉल्व हो रहा है. बट अगर ब्रॉड वे में देखें तो हम जो आपका क्वेश्चन आंसर करने के लिए लेंथ की बात कर रहे हो तो 3 किस्म की लेंथ है. शॉर्ट स्टोरी 8000 वर्ड्स तक है. देन वी हैव समथिंग नोन एज अ नोवेला. Novella is about 25,000 to 30,000 words. It is neither a short story nor a novel. Novel is usually more than 45,000 words. It could be much longer, up to 1,20,000, 1,30,000 words also. I write in the space of about 60,000 words because I think as writers we also have to understand and appreciate the fact that our readers have got many other things to do and you can't just really engage them with a story which is going to take much longer for them to read. So mine is about 60,000 words, ideally 3.5 hours or 3 hours depending on your reading length.
But talking about the genre in which you write, the crime fiction and the thrillers, if you look at some of the other authors, whether it is Agatha Christie, more of romantic thrillers, if you talk about Robin Cook, more of medical thrillers. So do you think that your stories also borrow your experience from your Coast Guard days? And is this the genre that you're going to stick to going forward?
No, of course, my experience of being an officer and also my reading these books that you mentioned, also many of the Indian writers have kind of given me the firepower to write this kind of a story. But also, I would be experimenting with different genres. And at the moment, I've just finished writing a romance novel.
Okay.
So I'm hoping to pitch that very soon through my agent to the leading publishers and hoping that they accept the idea of Kulpreet Yadav writing romance novels. But then talking about romance, all my books have got a romantic anchor, that is holding on to the story, which is crime. So romance is anyway a part of the story that I've written. So nothing new that I'm doing.
Okay.
No crime, more romance now.
But while on crime, tell me, when we have a crime thriller, what's the objective? Do you think it helps solve the crime? Does it reduce the crime? Or could somebody get inspired on how to do crime?
Oh, I hope and I pray that the last part never comes true. I personally feel that, for me, it's always very exciting to create an alternate world, create characters there, and ensure by the end of my story, the bad guy gets treated in a bad way, in an appropriate way, right? So because I don't see many of these things happening in real life, perhaps this is what I like to do. I like to play, if I can say, the creator, where the good gets treated in a better way and the evil gets treated in the way that the evil should be treated.
So from crime, you're saying you're diversifying to romantic novel as well, but that still would be a fiction. Viewers would certainly want to know, will Kulpreet Yadav also going forward experiment with non-fiction?
Non-fiction, definitely yes. I am looking for, I'm a history buff, and I've not been reading that much history now, but then I've done considerable research in the past when I was an officer and before I got into writing. So I'm looking for some national heroes of the 19th and the 20th century, of the struggle, and their struggle while India was a colony of a Western superpower at the time, and how they were coping up and how they were living a dream of India becoming independent that someday. And basically researching and trying to find the heroes, the stories of which no one has written. So yes, there is a desire to do that, and I hope I'm able to do it in a few years' time.
So even as we come on the verge of concluding our conversation, when you look back, how do you see your journey thus far? What do your parents say? कि मेरा बेटा कुलप्रीत अच्छा किया, उसने खुश थे जब उन्होंने आपने निर्णय लिया कि मैं एक लेखक बनूंगा, अब मैं और कोस्ट गार्ड की सेवा नहीं करूंगा?
मेरे फादर ने मेरे को कभी कभी बोलते हैं कि बेटा आप मेरे को पहले से पता होता तो मैं आपको या तो लॉयर बनाता या मैं आपको आर्ट्स में डालता. Since I was a good student and it was a natural choice for good students in those days to opt for the sciences, and I ended up doing chemistry honors. But I think I would just like to say that I'm very happy, very contented, very proud of being the fact that I'm an Indian. It's a great nation. Democracy thrives here. I'm very happy that my mom and dad have supported me through this journey. I'm very happy that my brother, a colonel who's just taken retirement last year, and his wife and family and my other relatives and friends and my wife and my 2 daughters have been they've been a kind of support and a pillar.
It's
Mehal and Liana. So they've been reading my stories, and
are your daughters your best critics?
I think they are, and they are, I think, very good readers themselves. Not just my books, but then we've got a fairly decent sized library at my home. We've always had. We've been giving away books also in the past to acquire newer books and find place for them. They have been reading a lot of books, and that I think helps them to be slightly more critical, which I need as a writer. So, so with the support of all my family and friends, I'm happy where I am, and I hope to really do well as a screenplay writer in 2018.
I saw this film, Will Smith starrer, In Pursuit of Happiness, where the narrator says, everyone seeks happiness, so can we be happy, or will we always be in pursuit of happiness?
I think we can be happy, and we need to take happiness breaks, if I can call it that. Maybe once in 2 months or 3 months, go on a break and look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'm happy. Be proud of what you've done, make a strategy to do it better next time, and put your legs up for 2 days and 2 months and say, I'm happy. If we just keep on pursuing happiness, which is what we're doing, and that's how it's going to always remain. But I think these happiness breaks are absolutely essential. And
to conclude, you're very popular on Twitter, and one of your original quotes is that there are no winners and losers. It's like either you tried or you didn't.
Yes, that's of course a very popular quote, and I completely believe in it, that there are no winners and losers in the world. It is those who tried and those who didn't. So whatever is there in your heart, if you have a burning desire, if something comes from the bottom of your heart, do not really bother that much about job security. Try to sidestep for a year or two, give it a shot, and be happy, be successful.
Absolutely. And for flowing like a river and handling uncertainty with aplomb, Kulpreet Yadav, thank you so much. And it's been a pleasure having this conversation with you. Thank you very much.
It's a dream come true moment for me, Amit. Believe me, it's a very big day for me. Thank you very much, and thanks to all the Doordarshan staff. You guys are wonderful. You played such a significant role in the growth of each and every Indian, including me. So hats off to you, and more energy to Doordarshan.
Thank you very much. Well, your story is inspirational. So that was Commandant Kulpreet Yadav, and I'm sure having understanding his journey would have inspired many of viewers as well. If you've got any feedback for the program, this is our email address, aajsavere@ddkdelhi.org.in. That just about does it on the program. Have a lovely day ahead. Thank you very much.